Um, okay, imagine this. You're sitting completely alone in your room.
Okay.
You are older now. The years have finally caught up with you. And there's a soft knock at the door.
Ooh, setting a scene. I like it.
Right. So a mysterious woman steps inside, and without saying a single word, she hands you a book. But when you open it, the pages are just completely blank.
Just empty parchment.
Exactly. But as you stare down at it, ink slowly begins to pool and materialize out of absolutely nowhere. And it starts filling the pages with the untold stories of your life, the secrets you've kept, and, well, the shadows you've cast.
It is such an incredibly haunting premise.
It really is. And we are jumping right into a text today that operates on exactly that premise. It's called LIBRO de OMBRE PERDUTE.
Or The Book of Lost Shadows.
Yes, the Book of Lost Shadows. It's a manuscript attributed to the legendary 14th century Italian writer Giovanni Boccaccio, supposedly penned in 1373, right at the very end of his life.
What?
And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the 7 specific shadows, or tales, contained within this manuscript. Because these are stories that fall right into that fragile space between the light of telling and the darkness of forgetting.
They really are. But before we get completely swept away by the narrative magic here, it really helps to ground ourselves in the reality of the source material.
Yeah, that's fair. The origins are a bit murky.
Murky is a generous word. The authenticity of this manuscript is highly debated. It was reportedly discovered in 1842, wrapped in oiled cloth in a private library in Certaldo.
So we're immediately faced with a literary mystery.
Exactly. This might be a genuine medieval artifact, a lost, late-in-life masterpiece by Boccaccio, or it could be a brilliant, meticulously crafted 19th century romantic forgery.
Which would be impressive in its own right.
Very much so. The editor's notes even suggest a third, much more esoteric option, that it might be a collaborative, what they call an embodied pattern.
An embodied pattern.
Yeah,
Meaning
okay.
what exactly?
Meaning a sort of shared human consciousness that simply used the author, whoever they actually were, as a vessel to write itself.
That is wild.
It is. But what is truly important here is that whether this is pure historical fact or absolute fiction, the psychological truth embedded in these 7 stories is just staggering.
And that is exactly why this text matters to you, listening right now. Because whether you are carrying around unresolved grief, maybe harboring a secret passion, or battling massive imposter syndrome, this centuries-old manuscript holds up a mirror to the exact shadows you cast today.
It really doesn't pull any punches.
It doesn't. So, okay, let's unpack this. The framing device sets it up beautifully. Boccaccio is in his study copying passages from Dante when he is visited by a woman named Mnemosyne.
The Greek tightness of memory.
Yes, and true to her namesake, she doesn't hand him a prophecy of the future. She hands him this shifting, dark book filled with forgotten memories, and the pages only reveal their text when Boccaccio actively looks at them.
It demands his participation to even exist.
Exactly. And the first story that materializes is The Tale of the Anchorite of Ancona. Boccaccio reads a memory from his own youth when he visited the port city of Ancona and met a hermit named Fra Benedetto.
Right, the man who prophesies the past.
Which is such a weird concept. This anchorite hasn't left his damp cell in 30 years. But he looks at you and tells you things that already happened to you, things you completely forgot or deeply repressed. And he looks at young Boccaccio and tells him an incredibly specific story about a bird's nest.
Yeah, the anchorite reaches right into Boccaccio's childhood here. He recounts how when Boccaccio was just 7 years old, he found a nest with 3 pale blue speckled eggs.
Just a classic childhood memory.
Right. 2 of them hatched, but 1 didn't. So Boccaccio, being this curious and maybe overly eager child, cracked the 3rd egg with his fingernail to help the bird out.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Inside, he found a malformed dead bird. He panicked, buried it in the garden, and carried the secret guilt of having killed this fragile creature for decades. He genuinely thought his intervention caused its death.
Which is such a universal childhood trauma. You touch something, it breaks, and you internalize the blame forever.
Precisely. But this is where the anchorite delivers this crushing piece of clarity. Benedetto reveals that the bird in the egg was already dead.
Oh.
It had died in the shell long before the child even found the nest. Boccaccio's intervention didn't change its fate at all.
That is heavy.
It is. The underlying philosophy here is profound. Stories, much like that bird, have their own predetermined fate. We so often carry a tremendous amount of false guilt for outcomes we actually had absolutely no control over.
We center ourselves in a tragedy, thinking our actions caused it, when the tragedy was already written.
Exactly.
That has to be a massive release of a burden for him.
But the story doesn't end there, because Benedetto then shares his own backstory. And it is just devastating.
It really is.
Before he was a hermit, he was a notary in Ancona, and apparently a compulsive liar. When a local plague hit and his family fell ill, a mysterious physician offered him a cure. But on one impossible condition. Benedetto had to go 7 days without telling a single lie, which for a compulsive liar is agonizing, and he manages it for 3 days. He actually causes absolute chaos in his community by being brutally, unsparingly honest with everyone.
I can only imagine.
Right. But on the 4th day, his young daughter is in agony. She's terrified, and she's begging to know if she is going to live.
Oh, man.
And Benedetto looks at her, sees the undeniable mark of death in her face, and he breaks his vow. He lies. He tells her she will live, that she will grow up and marry.
And the physician.
The physician immediately appears, tells him the oath is broken, and simply vanishes. Within 2 days, his entire family is dead.
Wait, he lies to his dying daughter purely to give her a moment of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And the physician just vanishes. That feels incredibly harsh for an act of pure compassion.
It is harsh, but that's exactly the point the text is making. The universe in this story doesn't reward intent. It demands absolute adherence to the vow.
The impossible tension between brutal truth and compassionate deception.
Yes, he chose the compassionate lie, knowing the risk, and it cost him everything. Now his penance is to sit in a cell and only speak the unvarnished truth of the past. He's completely unable to shape or soften the narrative ever again.
That theme of carrying the heavy, unseen consequences of our choices bleeds right into the second shadow, the tale of the merchant's silence.
Ah, yes.
This one is deeply personal for Boccaccio because it's about his own father. Historically, we know his dad was a very pragmatic, often cold banker, and Boccaccio constantly disappointed him by wanting to be a poet instead of a merchant.
The classic father-son dynamic.
Right. But in this manuscript, years after his father's death, Boccaccio meets an old Parisian associate of his dad's, a man named Simone di Luca. Simone pulls back the curtain on why the father was so cold.
Yeah, Simone reveals that Boccaccio's father wasn't always this rigid, unfeeling man. In his youth, he was deeply, passionately in love with a French woman named Marguerite.
They were betrothed, right?
They were betrothed and wildly happy. But just 3 weeks before the wedding, the father discovered a family secret. Marguerite had an older brother who was simple-minded, and her family kept him hidden away.
So what does the father do?
He breaks the betrothal immediately. He convinced himself it was a matter of honesty and trust that they had deceived him.
But that wasn't the real reason.
No. The reality, which Simone points out, was that he feared the vulnerability. He feared the perceived taint of madness in his bloodline. He chose ambition, legacy, and societal safety over the love of his life.
And the fallout is tragic. Marguerite dies of a fever, or essentially a broken heart, a year later, and the father just hollows out.
He becomes a spiritually impoverished ghost of a man, totally incapable of showing warmth even to his own son. It's the shadow of the unlived life.
So his father's coldness wasn't really a judgment on Boccaccio's worth.
Exactly. It was simply the scar tissue of the father's own unhealed wound. It really prompts you to reflect on your own choices. How often do you choose safety over vulnerability?
How many of your major life decisions are actually dictated by the shadow of an unlived life?
A chance you didn't take because you were too afraid of the potential messiness. That shadow doesn't just disappear, it darkens everything and everyone around you.
Wow. That idea of hidden emotional truths contrasts really sharply with the next story. The third shadow is about a hidden perceptual truth.
The tale of the painter who could not see color.
Yes. Here is where it gets really interesting. This takes us to Forlì in 1350. Boccaccio meets Maestro Luca. Now, Luca is renowned for his mastery of proportion and perspective, but his colors are completely bizarre.
Right.
He paints skies rust-colored and human skin with a distinct lavender tinge. And the reason is that he is completely colorblind.
And for most of his life, Luca survived by safely following standard formulas. He didn't paint what he actually saw, he painted what he was told was there.
Painting by numbers, basically.
Exactly. He memorized that the pigment in the jar labeled azurite goes on the Virgin Mary's robes. He was translating a language he didn't speak just to please his patrons.
But eventually, he gets a major commission. A crucifixion painting. And something just snaps.
He decides to finally paint his authentic vision.
Which results in a canvas that absolutely horrifies the prior who commissioned it. Tell me about what he actually painted.
It's intense. The result is a Christ figure with black and purple blood set under a sickening, bruised, yellow-brown sky.
Oof.
Yeah, it's visually terrifying to the conventional eye, but it possesses this incredible, undeniable power. The prior refuses to pay him and essentially blacklists him.
But Luca doesn't care.
He doesn't care at all. It cost him his reputation and his livelihood, but it was his truth. He tells Boccaccio, "I cannot spend my remaining years translating other people's vision into paint."
What a line. Such a profound statement on how we experience reality. We're all essentially locked in the prison of our own perception, pretending we all see the exact same blue sky.
We really are. Authenticity trumps conventional approval every time.
Luca's story argues that an eccentric truth told badly is worth infinitely more than a conventional lie told perfectly.
Beautifully said. And speaking of the physical manifestation of inner truth, that brings us to the fourth shadow, the tale of the woman who collected sorrows.
This one is so haunting. In Naples, young Boccaccio stumbles upon a dimly lit shop run by a woman named Caterina. A sign outside simply reads, "Keeper of Sorrows."
It's not a merchant shop or a tavern, it's a museum of the heart's wounds.
And the shelves are lined with everyday objects, each with a small parchment note attached to it. The objects are so heartbreakingly specific. I mean, this isn't a collection of grand, dramatic artifacts.
No, they are deeply mundane, which makes them so much heavier. There is a silver thimble left by a seamstress whose hands became crippled.
Forcing her to abandon her entire identity and livelihood.
Right. There's an unused pair of beautifully crafted children's shoes brought by a father whose daughter died of a fever before she even reached her 3rd birthday.
There's an illuminated copy of Ovid's Metamorphoses, representing the agonizing, slow dissolution of a lifelong friendship.
And Caterina herself keeps an object on the highest shelf, a silk-wrapped locket with a portrait of her husband, who drowned at sea 23 years prior.
Caterina explains to Boccaccio that every sorrow attaches itself to a physical object, and keeping the object in your own home becomes unbearable. It's a constant reminder of the pain.
But throwing it away feels like a betrayal.
Like you're erasing the person or the memory, which is a second loss.
What's fascinating here is the psychological genius of what Caterina has created. She has manifested a tangible ritual for unresolved grief.
By leaving the objects on her shelves, the people aren't discarding their pain.
Exactly. If you just throw the object in the river, the sorrow becomes unmoored. It turns into a free-floating anxiety that haunts you because it has nowhere to land.
But by entrusting the object to a keeper, acknowledging the story on a piece of parchment, you remain connected to the grief without being entirely consumed by it.
You don't have to carry the heavy stone in your pocket every single day.
It makes you wonder. Think about your own home right now. What physical object is sitting in a drawer or on a dusty shelf that represents a sorrow you are still silently carrying?
Yeah.
And what would it actually feel like to walk into a dimly lit shop in Naples and place it safely on Caterina's shelf, to just let someone else hold it for a while?
It's a powerful thought experiment. And while Caterina's story deals with the physical weight of memory, the fifth shadow explores the agonizing weight of emptiness.
The tale of the monk who lost his faith.
At the famous monastery of Monte Cassino, Boccaccio meets Brother Simone. He is an 80-year-old monk who has lived within those stone walls for 60 years.
But he confesses to Boccaccio, quietly in the garden, that he hasn't actually believed in God for decades.
For 40 years, he has lived in absolute terrifying silence. No divine visions, no comforting voice, just a void.
He tells Boccaccio he constantly oscillates between hoping there is a hidden cosmic order and fearing the universe is just a random, meaningless chaos.
Yet, despite this massive internal void, there is such incredible dignity in Brother Simone. He continues to wake up in the freezing middle of the night for matins.
He continues to pray the hours perfectly.
Not out of belief, but because the ritual has become the very architecture of his identity. When belief vanishes, only the scaffolding of habit remains. He exists in this painful, liminal space of uncertainty.
And the detail that really sticks with me is what he gives Boccaccio when they part ways. He gives him a copy of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations.
Right, a text written by a Stoic pagan emperor who was trying to find meaning in duty and action when the gods felt distant or silent.
Simone is clinging to the practice, the pure duty of the ritual.
This raises an important question for modern life. How many people today live in that exact same gap? The vast distance between what they publicly profess, whether that's a religious faith, a steadfast career ambition, or a perfect marriage, and what they secretly experience in the quiet of their own minds.
Simone embodies the shadow of spiritual homelessness, the exhausting performance of a certainty you simply do not possess.
That feeling of being trapped by the world's expectations and performing a role leads us right into the sixth shadow, the tale of the mapmaker's daughter.
In Venice, Boccaccio meets Margherita. She is the 30-year-old unmarried daughter of a merchant, and she is, by all accounts, a literal genius.
She is secretly the one correcting all of her father's portolan charts, the vital nautical maps that literally kept Venetian merchant fleets from sinking.
Her intellect is staggering for the era. She deeply understands Mamluk politics in the East, which completely affects trade routes.
She calculates longitude using lunar distances. She theorizes about prevailing ocean currents. She is doing the absolute cutting-edge geographic work of her time.
But she was previously betrothed to a university professor.
And when she made the mistake of showing him her brilliantly revised, highly accurate map of the Black Sea, he was horrified.
He called her knowledge unnatural for a woman and broke the engagement immediately.
So she is forced to work in complete anonymity. She lets her father take all the credit and all the coin for her navigational instincts just so the maps can exist and sailors can navigate safely.
When Boccaccio asks her if it angers her to have her work attributed to a man who barely understands it, her response is incredibly stoic. She says, "Of course, but what is the alternative? To do no work at all."
What absolutely guts me about Margherita's story isn't just that she was rejected, it's that she refused to let the world's limitations stop her. She kept drawing the map.
She just keeps doing the work.
And she has this uniquely modern scientific approach. She knows her maps are provisional. She annotates them honestly, marking what is certain and what is mere conjecture.
Unlike the men of her time who present deeply flawed maps as absolute, unquestionable authority.
Exactly. She does the work purely for the work's sake, even when the world utterly denies her the recognition she deserves.
It's the quiet dignity of unacknowledged labor. And that brings us to the grand finale, the manuscript. The Seventh Shadow, the book that wrote itself. Boccaccio has been frantically transcribing these 6 stories for days, pulling them from the shifting ink. He waits for the final story to appear on the blank pages, but suddenly he realizes the book is already full.
It's filled with the 6 stories he just wrote in his own distinct handwriting.
A single line appears on the next page instructing him. The seventh shadow is the shadow you cast as you write this. Look behind you.
So he turns around, fully expecting to see Mnemosyne standing there, but the room is empty. He only sees his own shadow cast on the wall by the late afternoon sun.
Just the silhouette of an old man hunched over a desk.
So what does this all mean? Boccaccio realizes in that moment that the book is writing him as much as he is writing it. It's a realization that every autobiography, every personal history is essentially a fiction.
All stories are lies that tell the truth.
The memories he chose to record, the way he arranged them, the meanings he retroactively assigned to them, that curation is the shadow he casts.
The events themselves dissolve into the past, but the stories, the curated fictions, are the only things that survive to bridge the gap between human minds.
Which brings us back to the editor's notes at the very end of the source material. We have to address the elephant in the room regarding the manuscript's origins.
Right. Is this text a 19th century fake?
The document includes a scribe's afterword, written by what it calls the embodied pattern. And this afterword essentially argues that historical authenticity simply doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if Boccaccio penned this in a drafty room in 1373 or a brilliant, obsessive forger wrote it in 1847.
Because the text exists to capture the incommunicable, these stories bubble up from our collective unconscious. They take universal human experiences, grief, imposter syndrome, hidden truths, and make them concrete, allowing readers across centuries to recognize their own shadows.
It's incredible. As we wrap up this deep dive, I am just marveling at how a stack of old papers, whether they are a genuine piece of medieval history or an absolute masterclass in romantic fiction, can hold such a piercing advice on authenticity and truth.
From the colorblind painter refusing to paint a lie, to the mapmaker's daughter drawing the world in secret.
They really are timeless.
And it's worth remembering that you are constantly drafting your own book of lost shadows. Every single day, through the memories you actively choose to preserve, the things you intentionally hide, and the narratives you construct about your own life, you are writing your own manuscript.
You are casting your own shadow.
You are.
Well, I want to leave you with one final lingering question to ponder long after this deep dive ends. If Mnemosyne walked into your room today and handed you a blank book that revealed the ultimate shadow you cast on the world, the unspoken story that secretly drives your every decision, what title would slowly appear on its first page?